Okay, we're back. So I have a question for you that's a little different than the finance kind of conversation we typically have.
Okay.
There's this whole, like, anybody who's ever thought about being an entrepreneur has always heard this saying of, businesses always, 90% of the businesses that started or fail, which is probably pretty true because most people shouldn't start the business. And then inside what's the time frame? It's usually like the 3-year mark. If you haven't made it in 3 years, then you got to reevaluate, should you be doing this?
Yeah.
So that's the question. Like, if I'm in business and it's the 3-year mark and I'm still struggling, then should I stay in business? Should I just hang it up and go get a job, or hang it up, pay some money back, assuming I'm not underwater, and start something new?
Yeah. A lot, I guess, depends in that, Have you had growth in sales? Have you had growth in other areas, of that business?
Yeah.
What is the acquisition? I disagree with, a lot of the tech philosophy where it's grow at all costs, when they truly don't even know at some point, you got to have a certain amount of customers and make a good revenue. So I guess it really depends on a lot of factors, but are you profitable in your product or service you selling it?
Yeah. Do you have a margin at all?
Yeah.
Are you underwater? Yeah.
Is it just the cost of conversion is so high that that's why you're under water? Or is it because, I'm in the growth stage, so I'm spending money.
Yeah.
And, I've seen that. And lately I've seen a lot of businesses that have been, that started a couple years ago, and their interim shows them profitable, but it's like, okay, great. You still need a longer term now in order to start taking on debt. Like, just because you're profitable, a year.
You need a longer track record.
Yes. Yeah. Because that could be many things.
Yeah.
Maybe competition hasn't hit. Maybe.
Yeah. My thought is, like, sometimes people go too hard too fast. A brand new entrepreneur, business owner, they don't know what they don't know. So they take the highlights of what they've seen or read and they implement those, like going into debt right away.
Well, and starting up when you're the one actively doing all the sales, and now you've got some sales in there. You can make money off a smaller margin. But then when you start hiring people, as you grow, your margins have to expand.
Yes.
And I think that is a big problem with business. They don't realize it, their margins, and thinking, well, no, I got a 30% margin. I hired these people. No. Now your margin shrinks because you had to hire someone that you can't be there to do that.
And if your margin doesn't grow, then your volume of sales has to grow exponentially. And sometimes that's not possible.
Yeah. And if you're only profitable when you keep layering on sales, then
it's going to fail at some point.
Yes. And I see that in the banking industry. And right now in the banking, you're not seeing banks grow their loan portfolio at the speed that they were.
Right.
And so then I'm losing money. Well, no, you've got a basis of loans that are paying. Are you telling me your expenses didn't fit that?
Yeah.
So
I think this type of question is a very broad question. And, if we really looked into it, there's all different types of businesses that we could be talking about here. A lot of them would be capital intensive. They could be equipment intensive, inventory intensive, team intensive, labor intensive. So, when you look at these businesses, it really depends on the type of business you're in. But I think what stands out more than anything, and I think this could apply across the board, is product market fit. Yeah. If at 3 years you're still struggling and it's not a financial problem, meaning you're efficient, with your you've got some sort of systems in place, maybe not fully, but you've got efficiencies. You're not overstaffed. You're not overpaying for a building or rent. It's probably product market fit, meaning, like, do people want what you're selling?
Yeah. And you got to take a step back, because if that's not working there at 3 years, how is that going to work when you've doubled your staff?
Yeah. There's like the big unicorns of the world, like Amazon, where they just keep pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into it, and they have a visionary, and it does work because there's hundreds of $millions to pump into it.
Well, and
then you got your small businesses. The medium size are basically setting themselves up to be acquired.
Yeah.
You have your small businesses that are generally mom and pop, and it's generally they're operating in the minutia every single day. They're the bottleneck. They don't have systems. Those are a lot of the problems you see. if you can be self-aware enough to honestly say that it's not all those things, like we run a pretty tight ship, we only hire when we need it, we're growing incrementally, but we're not, it's sales.
Then it would be product market fit.
Then no one's screaming like, and it's not going to be like, exponential demand. I think for small businesses, if you're in a business that is unique, like let's say you start, some kind of retail store that is selling a different hodgepodge of things that no one's done in your area. Well, then the market fit issue, the demographics don't mention
stuff like that either catches on right away.
Yes.
And you have those few that have been around and then it caught on, you're ahead of the curve and maybe it caught on 10 years later, but I think those are few and far between. Are you willing to sit there and the whole time too?
If you did the previous product, the market research, meaning like maybe started a farmer's market and then you got into a space, you did those critical steps to identify the market and have people give you feedback, then what happened in the transition from the farmer's market to the retail space, right? Or if it's a service business, like what happened in your service or the product that you're servicing, what happened in the last 3 years that changed?
Yeah.
Are you getting feedback from your customers? Are you getting feedback from potential buyers? Where are they stopping in the process of buying? And I think a lot of those things can help someone figure out that, hey, maybe it's not necessarily me as a bottleneck. Maybe it's not my team. Maybe it's or finances. Maybe it's the fact that I don't have something that is worthy for the market and people don't want to pay what I need them to pay.
Now, as you've gotten called then to consult, have you been in that position where it's 2 to 3 years that business is in there and they're kind of at a slow and you've had to say, honestly, there's nothing I do for you because I don't think that product market fit is here for this. And you're struggling now. Yeah. You're just going to pay me and I'm probably not going to move the needle for you.
I think what I see by far is the single or mom and pop businesses that are what the bigger businesses, investors would call lifestyle businesses. Like they're making enough money. They're self-employed. They're selling something that people want broadly and they know they can sell it. Like they're painting houses or they're, I'm just off the top of my head, like, selling they're a dealer for a product that's been vetted, they're doing these things. And then you have the next level where it's like, there's a lot of potential here for them to scale up, but they are really struggling with mindset about how to do that and what that looks like, what that path, the practical path, but also like where are they in the business since they're not going to be part of the operations anymore. Like if they're not the ones talking with the customers, they struggle with, well, where's my role? Yeah. Which just goes back to like, well, I know what I do here. I get up and I go do this thing.
Too. I mean, your role when you start a business and 2 years later is completely different. They are kind of don't have anything to do with one another.
Yeah. And some entrepreneurs, like they have a spirit about it and like they don't want to work for someone anymore. They've done it for a long time. They start a business and they make a decent living and that's fine. And that's where they stick. That's what, the Robert Kiyosaki, quadrant, self-employed. If you're cool with that, that's cool. Perfect. Get creative on your taxes and you're good. If you want to actually own a business, well, you're going to have to hire people and your role has to become business owner.
No, you have manager, to be quality control,
it's got to check, all that.
Know that systems and procedures are in place and constantly revisit those systems and procedures.
So it's about what do you want? Do you want to be a business owner and not be hand to hand with all the customers and be the person the customer looks to? Or do you want to be the person the customer looks to and you have a good, like that's all you do?
Yeah.
Because those are two different people and different mindsets.
You can remain in that position of just dealing with the customer, but then you're going to have to take a back seat to other decisions and maybe hire someone else that has that vision of taking it.
Actually, I got a cool story. So, I have a podcast and on that I had Manny De La Vega, which Manny. Locally. And he's a business coach, advisor, and has also owned multiple restaurants and been successful and like lots of cool things he's done in the nonprofit world. And so he was on and we were talking about leadership and he mentioned it, just to this point where he was mentoring a younger small business owner that had started this business and it required deliveries. Mm-hmm. And so of course this guy started it. He's doing all the deliveries. Yeah. Well, do you know the story?
No.
It's so cool. Like he's like, so when he got in there, he's like, okay, so how this is going to grow is for you to figure out like your passion in the business so that, you can attach yourself to it and then it has a path forward. Right. So he was talking to him about it and he realized like, he's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what's your passion about doing this? And he's like, honestly, I just love making the deliveries.
That's great.
Yeah. And I was like, that's so cool. So you nailed that down. Now, if you want, but he also wants to build a business. Mm-hmm. So he had to build a team. He hired a CEO and like did all this stuff so he could be on the truck delivering. He loved delivering the product to the customer, seeing the smile on their face, shaking their hand. And honestly, like that's not really the right path for most business owners.
I'm
because
glad he had the wherewithal to realize that that's what I like to do.
But you couldn't get a better, like it's like in the SaaS world, like a founder builder. Yeah. It's like the product and being, a product, being able to market that product, being the actual person who owns the business and you're talking to all the customers or most of the customers on your route. All that information goes
he can
straight
give
up.
The best feedback.
Yeah. I mean, so you can't get any better when it comes to growing a business to direct customer feedback from the owner.
Have we heard now where that company's at?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I would love to know.
Yeah.
It was really
at
cool.
least they vetted it out right in the beginning and go there and,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So there's lots of different ways to come at this, but I think if you're at the 3-year mark, it doesn't necessarily mean you should hang it up. I think if you are wanting to make a decent living and what you're selling people want to a large extent, like they're not, maybe not knocking your door down, but you can go find the customers, then keep doing what you're doing. Don't feel like, but if you have a financial issue or
if you're miserable but profitable, then you're going to have to figure out a way to pull yourself out. So you've got a business you can sell.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then that is, get yourself out of it, let somebody else run it so you have something to sell.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool.
Sounds good.